All right, 1 2 1 2 in the place to be. What's up, y'all? How y'all feel out there? Frank Red on the In the Dungeon show, live and direct. I want to thank you for wherever you are checking the program out. I really appreciate it. Coming to you on this special day, Mother's Day, my favorite holiday of the year, and I want to wish all the mothers out there a happy Mother's Day. Fathers who, fortunately or unfortunately, have had to take on dual roles. I certainly want to big you up also. Grandmas, aunties, people in general who see a place where they can be helpful to young people and they take on the responsibility of raising kids that are not theirs. I want to give you props as well. I could talk 3 hours tonight about sports and about life. I'm not going to do that, but I can. But even in this introduction, I'm talking about Mother's Day. It makes me think about one of the books that I had the opportunity to read when I was much younger, by a great author by the name of Walter Dean Myers. Walter Dean Myers was the literary laureate. I know I'm mispronouncing that. I have the title wrong. But basically, he was the literature go-to author for President Obama when he was in office. And he wrote countless books about children. And one of the books that he wrote, is a book that's called Bad Boy. And these are one of the books that I read as a young person. It kind of changed my life because he and I were similar. It was an autobiography, and it was about him. And basically, I don't want to spoil it for you because you might read it ultimately. But basically, Walter Dean Myers was raised by a woman who was the girlfriend of his biological father. And they broke up. She ultimately went and moved to New York in like the 1950s. Married a gentleman with the last name Dean Myers. And she remembered little Walter when she was dating his father in West Virginia, I believe it was, early on in their lives. She asked her husband if they could raise him because they knew that there was some strife. They went down to West Virginia and essentially just kind of took Walter and raised him in New York City, in Harlem, and the rest is history. But my point is, it's one thing to say Happy Mother's Day, but there's so much more to that. And I want to express that. I want to show deep gratitude and love for mothers and people in general who take upon that responsibility. There's so much intersectionality also in families on how children of the same family could grow up and have the same resources, the same amount of love, but turn out totally different. Puzzling. Why is that the case? It's called life. That's why it is. So, as I digress, what's up, everybody? It's interesting because, we're going to talk a lot about the NBA playoffs. And there was anxiety, I'm sure, from the networks, for maybe local basketball fans of the Warriors, maybe the Kings, some other teams, because the Lakers, the Kings, the Warriors are all knocked out. And it's logical to think that the playoffs are not going to be good anymore because Stephen Curry's not playing, LeBron's not playing, D Fox is not playing. Well, I got to tell you, thus far, the NBA playoffs has been a home run as I mix my sports metaphors. It's been outstanding. Most of the games have been good. All of the series have been good. And the last time I did a show, we're talking about Minnesota going into Denver and winning 2 games in a row. And I basically said, if Denver has the mentality of winning 1 game at a time, as opposed to 2 in 1, they're going to be okay because they're champions. And you don't know what a champion does until you become a champion. I'm also very, very, very proud of the fact that I've never been a stat guy. I don't look at stats. I might, take a look at them, but I don't define my conclusions about sports based on stats. Nikola Jokic, a 3-time MVP of the NBA, right? You can throw a bunch of stats at me. I don't care about the stats. This dude played one of the best games today that I've ever seen him play. And I've ever seen him play. He looked like the best player in the NBA tonight. There were so many different things that he did tonight that supported winning, that supported his teammates, that supported his coaches, that probably just flew over the head of a lot of people. But I'm going to break it down for you and tell you what they are, because not many people in the history of basketball can do the multitude of things that he did in 1 game tonight. It was unbelievable. I'm going to give you a quick story also about Michael Malone, the head coach of the Denver Nuggets. Kind of tell you what kind of guy he is. Michael Malone used to be an assistant coach for Mark Jackson with the Golden State Warriors. And when I was covering the Warriors, the media and the players entered and left out of the arena in the same area, the same exit door. So I would see Michael Malone after the games leaving, going to the parking lot, and I would be going to the parking lot, a different parking lot, but I was walking through the same door to my car. This guy used to drive like a Toyota hatchback from the 1970s. Now we're talking, 15 years ago now? Whatever it is. So he wasn't making millions, but he still was making a nice salary. It wasn't like he was poor. But this dude was a knuckles to the cement grinder type of guy, just like he is now. He's a straight shooter. He was not in awe of the moment, of the environment, of being an NBA assistant. No, this dude was just doing his job. That's what he did. And I got to think that that's how he coaches. That's how he demands that his assistants comport themselves. And he has extremely high expectations for his players. So if you're going to play the Denver Nuggets and you're going to beat them, you got to take their heart from them. Minnesota's not ready for that. They're not. Minnesota is an average IQ basketball team. Average at best. Part of that is who the coaches are playing. They're not playing, I believe, the smartest players for whatever reason. They have one of the top 5 players on their team in basketball, and Anthony Edwards. I could watch that guy all day, all night. What a phenomenal talent he is, and leader. You talk about, who's going to be the face of the NBA? Hello? You play to win the game. That's your face of the NBA, okay? You want to market Victor Wembanyama overseas and in France and different, fine. Hey, maybe you got a couple of faces. You got a couple, but that's the dude right there. Anthony Edwards, the 22-year-old blowtorch. That's the face of the NBA. It's not that hard. I said it before and I said it again. At the age of 22, he's as good as Michael Jordan was at 22. Now, Michael Jordan took some really big leaps after that. I'm not comparing him to Michael Jordan vintage Mike. I'm not doing that. But as a 22-year-old basketball player, he's just as good. I heard Reggie Miller and I heard Jamal Crawford tonight saying that he reminded him of D Wade. No, he got more than D Wade. I love D Wade. D Wade did not have a long ball like that. Did not. Step back, three, no. We love D Wade. D Wade is awesome. D Wade is not that. He's not. So, Minnesota is going to have to really listen to their coaches and stick together to try to get a win in Denver. It's going to be really, really hard because Denver executes so well. Denver's one of the smartest teams in basketball. How do I know? Think about this. One basketball component. In the half court, more times than not, they get the shot that they want. They don't have to look at the sideline. They got 3-4 guys who are intelligent enough to make winning basketball plays, and they overwhelm Minnesota. Now, I'm going to give you one thing, and then I'm going to introduce some of the folks that are waiting in the comment section. What Michael Malone told his team, he said this, fellas, in game 2, you got overwhelmed and you got punked by a hungrier, more aggressive, more athletic team. In a very short period of time, in 2 or 3 days, what he did was he had his team go through a mental metamorphosis to the extent that they became comfortable with the physicality of the game. Think about the game that we just watched. They were almost impervious to Minnesota's pressure. Hand checking, bumping, didn't matter because Michael Malone and his coaches had prepared them to deal with the physicality of the game. When Minnesota knew that Denver was unbothered by the physicality, they didn't have a counterpunch. They were done. They did not have a counterpunch. I got to give it up to Jokic because Jokic has been viewed as a guy who was pretty soft. He did not look like a soft player tonight. He looked like the toughest guy on the court. 3 or 4 times tonight, he went through Gobert and Cat Towns. Went through them. He brought the ball up the court himself. He made 3-pointers. He made shots late in the shot clock. He made reverse dribbles to the baseline off the glass. Good. He hit Aaron Gordon for lobs. That dude did everything tonight. And he embarrassed Rudy Gobert and Cat Towns. Embarrassed them. There were a couple of times in which the producer of the television broadcast kind of flashed Anthony Edwards really quickly. And you saw the expression on his face. He was just like, damn, he doing that to my boys? These 2 7-footers? By the end of the game, I was like, Minnesota really needs to trade Cat. They need to trade him. I don't know if I'm going to get off that horse. I might just say, yo, the league is kind of changing. Anthony Edwards is kind of the guy. He needs room. Trade Cat and go get a forward who can really score and get out of the way. I got a lot to talk about, people. But I'm going to go out and acknowledge the loyal people that support me. I really appreciate it. The Great Vicky. I love that tag, The Great Vicky. She says, hi, Frank. Love the song. I know you've been working on it for a while. Thank you for sharing it with us. You are very talented. Well, thank you. I appreciate you commenting on the song. You were part of my inspiration to get it done, so I got it done. I'm working on another joint right now that I'm going to release in about a month that I think you're going to like as well. Hopefully the listeners will like it. But thank you. I appreciate you. Vicky also says Denver was okay tonight. They seemed to play better last year. They have to play better if they want to repeat. I think they were better than okay, Vicky, because they played on the road. Anytime that you play on the road, that's high stakes. When you consider they don't have Bruce Bowen, they didn't replace the Georgetown great, who's on Houston now. So they're doing it more with younger players now, and they don't really have a backup center. Michael Porter Jr. is dealing with a lot of stuff personally. They had not been playing well at all. I totally agree with you. But in this particular game, I think they showed their championship medal. So I want to big them up for playing so well tonight. Jimmy says, what's up, Frank? Was very disappointed in Minnesota tonight. Towns is so inconsistent. Yeah, I think he should be traded. I honestly do. And it's not because he can't play. He can clearly play. But nobody that talented should play so unintelligently. You could talk about the 3 for 18. That's one thing. But the mental mistakes that he makes is just not acceptable. It's not acceptable. He should be playing in Brooklyn somewhere. Send him to Brooklyn where he can do what he wants to do and, quote, be the man. Who are you going to send back to Minnesota? Mikal Bridges? Mikal Bridges and somebody else? I would trade him. I would trade Cat. Because he's not a center. He's not. Gobert's going to be there. You got Anthony Edwards. They need other offensive players who can complement Anthony Edwards. I think that they have enough offensively to be really, really good, but they got to get better. Even though they're good defensively in the regular season, they made a lot of mental mistakes tonight, and Cat was number 1 on the list. So I'm with you. Vicky says, I wish the Warriors would get Ant-Man. Love the way he plays. Yeah, Vicky, you and, 29 other teams wish they could have him now. What a player. Special player. No doubt about that. Also watching Denver, I remember the first time I saw Aaron Gordon. He had a big brother. I can't think of his name right now. But his big brother was kind of a big deal also. Good player. But Aaron was like 12 or 13 years old at the time. I mean, I'm not going to get over myself, but if Aaron Gordon could put together another 4 or 5 years, win at least another championship, this dude could be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, he shows up in the biggest games. 27 points tonight, terrific defense. He's a defensive stopper. They put him on Anthony Edwards a couple of times, and he didn't turn his water off, but he certainly put up a pretty strong resistance that Anthony Edwards had to work a little harder to score. So very proud of Aaron Gordon. I mean, he has been outstanding. He really has. He's been everything and more that Denver wanted him to be. And yeah, you have Jokic as the best player. Clearly, Jamal Murray is kind of that number 2 guy. But I think Aaron Gordon is like a 2A, He's right there. He is so important to the success of that team. Vicky says, if Towns played on the Warriors, he would be the 15th man on the bench. No. He would look a lot better on the Warriors, actually, because they would teach him the game. Part of Cat Towns' problem is I don't think that they approach basketball like a class. They just go out and they play. And Chris Finch, their head coach, has a defensive pedigree, which is why I think they're so good on defense. They're really good on defense. They work hard most of the time, but that offense looks like 3-day-old mashed potatoes. It's stuck. It's stuck. And if they make a shot, then fine. Luckily, they got a great player in Anthony Edwards. But that defense, that offense is horrid. No cutting, no passing. Terrible. Michael Malone looked at the tape, and he was like, okay, we got these guys. And he devised a terrific defensive game plan to stifle Minnesota. They were switching from man to zone late in the shot clock. They were doubling hard in the corners. They had 2 separate traps for Anthony Edwards that made him work really, really hard. And I've been saying this for half a year. Michael Conley Jr. in year 15 and 16, the guy's had a terrific career. But if he's your starting point guard, playing 30-plus minutes a game, you're not serious about winning the championship. The guy's like 5'11", 6 feet, maybe. Good player. But they need a better point guard. Or they need a better backup point guard that they're going to play. I immediately thought of Chris Paul. But, I don't know if the geography works for Chris Paul. That's a long way from his family. But I think Chris Paul would be a great compliment to Minnesota. If they can't make a trade and go get like a stud point guard, I think Chris Paul could definitely help them. It wouldn't surprise me if Chris Paul found his way back to Phoenix also. I thought it was a mistake getting rid of him. So, watching the playoffs this year also makes me think of the Golden State Warriors, and it makes me think that when everybody's on this, well, we got to tear it down, and the Warriors are too old, we need to go young. I'm like, you know what? Hold your horses a little bit. It's a year-to-year proposition. Why are teams succeeding in the playoffs right now? Because of execution. That's why. The series is not over, but if I was a betting person, and I'm not, I never would have picked OKC to beat Dallas. No way. OKC could not beat the Warriors in a series. They're not ready yet. They don't play playoff basketball. They need to make some additions. Chet Holmgren launching threes in the corner. You can have all those. You can have as many threes as you want because you're not a good shooter. What he is a terrific defender, a tough, Slim Jim type player. He's going to gain weight as he gets older. I think if he just worked on, being Kevin McHale, this dude would be one of the top power forwards in basketball. But he sees himself differently. He sees himself as I'm a Kevin Durant type player. No, you're not. That's not who you are. When Dallas saw Chet Holmgren launching threes, they got giddy. They knew it was over. Vicky says, look, it's hard enough to win one championship. 2 is almost impossible for most teams. If Denver repeats, hats off. Steve doesn't have patience for non-basketball. Towns would have to play better. Yes, he would. Yes, he would. I agree with you, Vicky, but I think that part of the development of players is the responsibility of the coaches. And I'm still going to say the Golden State Warriors has one of the best offensive schemes in all of basketball, even now. Still really, really high level. And I don't think that Cat is unintelligent. I think he is intelligent. I think he doesn't always play smart basketball. And that's not all on him. Their system, like I said, is like mashed potatoes, third day old mashed potatoes. It's stuck. No back cuts, no hard line drives. I mean, it's unfortunate because I don't think just by bringing that band back together next year, Minnesota would be that much better. They might have a great regular season record, but if they match up against a team in the playoffs that was structurally ready to go, they would lose. This league, for those of us who love the NBA, people talk about like drafts every year, like they're the worst drafts. Oh, this draft is terrible. They always say that because they don't want you to know who they want to draft. This draft, the 2024 draft, is outstanding. The problem for a lot of organizations, and they hate this, is that there are a lot of unknowns. They don't know who to draft. So, I mean, it's the first time, I guess, in history that the Atlanta Hawks has ever had the number one pick. They don't know who to draft. They have no clue. They have zero clue who to draft. But there's a lot of good players. I'm going to tell you a team that is going to be scary, and that's the Houston Rockets. With Ime Udoka as the coach, they got this guy, Rod Stone, this brother, as the general manager, who's done a phenomenal job drafting players. They got the number 3 pick. You know who they're going to draft? They're going to draft my favorite player in this year's draft, which is Reed Sheppard. You know, they're going to draft him. They're going to let him learn under Fred VanVleet. And in 2 or 3 years, this dude is going to be, well, I'm going to say in 3 or 4 years, I think he'll be one of the top point guards in the NBA. What a great player. Jimmy says Sarr should go number 1, I think. So you've seen the tape. You haven't seen him up close and personal, but you've seen the tape. I saw the same tape, Jimmy, and he might be that guy, but I can't trust the tape like that. Not for the number 1 pick. I wish he had played in the United States. I wish he had played in college where we get a chance to actually see him play. Does he have the measurables? Absolutely. You know, but do you want to take a 7-foot guy from France and put him in Atlanta? The number 1 pick. Oh no. Nah, send him to you. I'm sending him to San Antonio, not Atlanta. That's not a good place for the number 1 pick with a whole lot of money. Maybe it's like Victor Wembanyama, you know. I'm laughing because it's funny. But they say that he is a potential number 1, Sarr. I can't make an evaluation based off players that I really haven't seen. I saw the tape. That's not quite good enough for me. I'm going to give you a name now. And you're going to say, Red, who the hell is this guy? He's not overwhelming. Keep your eye on a guy by the name of P.J. Hall. P.J. Hall is a 6'10", kind of power forward, center type. Not a big jumper. Extremely smart player from Clemson. I think he might be around when the Warriors draft in the 2nd round, or he might not even be drafted. But I think he can play in the NBA, and I think that he's perfect for the Warriors organization. Not a super athlete, but super smart. Real physical, about 240 pounds. A tough guy, a real tough guy also. So, you know, he's another guy who could be a rotation dude in the front court that you're really not paying a whole lot for. And I'm sure you're saying, Red, the guy didn't dominate college. He had a very good college career, averaged 18 points a game for a solid Clemson basketball team. So I don't know if the Warriors are going to take him or not, but keep your eye on him. PJ Hall is a guy who I think they can get. The Warriors are in a difficult situation because they have to get a front court player for not a whole lot of money. I think they have their mid-level exception this year, which is good, but it's going to be tough. Now, you guys know that I'm big on Reed Sheppard. I'm also big on his teammate. His teammate name is, hold one second, Rob Dillingham. I think Rob Dillingham is legit. I mean, Reed Sheppard didn't start at Kentucky just because I guess Coach Cal didn't want to start him. But Rob Dillingham is an outstanding player also. I think he's a future starting NBA guard. I think Reed Sheppard is. There's a lot of good players in this draft. And there's a lot of teams that's picking high in the draft that are literally on the cusp of making the playoffs. So this league is tough as hell. It really is. The Sacramento Kings, I think, are in a great situation at 13. Even though a lot of people were like, well, we don't want this year's pick. I'm like, are you crazy? At 13, I think Jarrett McClain, the Sac kid, is going to be there. The kid that went to Duke. But he's the type of player that OKC would draft at 12. But I think Jarrett McClain would be a welcome addition to the Sacramento Kings. 6'3", knockdown three-point shooter, kind of a combo guard. He could help them. Now, there's another player, Tyler Smith, that played for G League Elite, who's 6'11", lefty. You don't get that type of length at 13 with the skill set that this kid has. So Sacramento, I think, is in a really, really good position to draft at 13 to get a quality player who probably grades out of like 5, 6, or 7 in terms of true value. So the Kings are in pretty good shape. They just need to draft the right player. Key says, do the Warriors even have a first-round pick, Frank? Or is trade free agency our only way of improving? Yeah, they don't have a first-round pick. Their first-round pick goes to Portland. And that was part of the Jordan Poole deal going to Washington. They had to give up a first-round pick. That pick got traded, somehow wound up in Portland. So now they don't have a first-round pick. Had they made it to the top 4, they would have kept their pick, but that didn't happen. So free agency, mid-level exception, veteran signings is how they're going to have to get things done. Now, one of the keys for the Warriors is they have Chris Paul's contract. Chris Paul's not ready to retire. He has a $30 million expiring contract. Some organizations might be interested in taking that on to clean their books up, and he can still play. Maybe the Warriors could get a player in return who could help them. Brandon Podzinski as my primary backup point guard scares the crap out of me. I just got to be honest with you. That scares the hell out of me. I don't think he's ready for that. I don't. And I think that the guards in the NBA are getting better. I'm not saying Chris Paul needs to be here, is going to be here, but just giving that responsibility to Brandon Podzinski, I don't think he's ready for that. I don't. Maybe the Warriors go out and get a Monte Morris or somebody like that. But the Warriors are they don't like to pay people. The Warriors do not like to pay free agents. They don't. So, I mean, most of the time when the Warriors are signing like a guard or something, they're scraping the barrel. And that's unfortunate because that's not how you win. Vicky says right now the Warriors only have a second-round pick. Yeah. And I think they can do some real damage with that second-round pick. I honestly do. I gave you a name, PJ Hall. I'm sure some of you have checked on him that you might not have known about him. Maybe you do know about him. I think he's a good player. Jimmy, wow, Detroit, the second straight year, the worst record in the NBA, ended up with the 5th pick both times. Yeah, I think having the worst record in the league should disqualify you from getting the number 1 pick. I honestly believe that. And I'm being somewhat facetious, but not really. Monty Williams, who I think has all the characteristics of a good coach, did one of the worst coaching jobs that I've ever seen before last year. Horrible. You look at that roster, that's not a bad roster. You know, they signed Monty Williams to a $75 million contract or something like that. Adrian Griffin gets fired after 43 games with a 30-13 record. Detroit was like, what, 2-33 or 3-34? I mean, come on. Come on. And you want the number 1 pick? You don't deserve a number 1 pick for that. Now, fortunately for Detroit, the 5th pick is probably worthy of the number 1. You got to pick the right players. Keith says, man, we need some of that second-round magic. Yeah, you might get it too, because there are some really good players in this year's draft that not a lot of people know about. Yeah. So, but the Warriors are so specialized, they're not going to draft most of the kids who are eligible at that situation. I mean, like most of the guys who they would be able to draft, they don't want, because their offense is so complex. If you haven't run some semblance of an offense in college, you're going to have a tough time with the Warriors. Because as opposed to a lot of plays, the Warriors run a lot of basketball sequences, like things that you as a basketball player know. Just because somebody makes a particular move, you know what the next move is if you play basketball, if you run an offense. If you run a lot of high pick and roll or just play one-on-one basketball in college, it's going to take you more time. And that's not what the Warriors want. So I think they should get a front court player. I think that there are enough athletic, big, strong players out there that could come in and potentially help this team. Figure the guard situation out. I mean, Clay's coming back. We know Clay's coming back. I mean, come on. Clay's coming back. 25, 30 million is going to get it done with Clay. I think they need another guard to support Brandon Podzinski. GP2 is still there. You know, Moody is probably still there. They need front court help. You know, if you can, I wouldn't have a problem with them trading Wiggins at all. I would love to see them get Alex Burke back, but I think he's going to be loyal to the Knicks. I love Alex Burke. Alex Burke is the perfect rotation player. Cannot play for 5, 6, 7 games, come off the bench and give you 20. Not say a word. Total team guy. Wow. The Warriors could get Alex Burke, or Bogdanović, who's out for the year now with the Knicks. I don't think the Knicks are going to sign him and Bogdanovich. If the Warriors could get Bogdanovich on the mid-level exception, that would be outstanding. Vicky says, if Steph gets hurt, season over. They need a second point guard. I agree with you about Pods. Yeah, Vicky. I mean, Pods has had a phenomenal introduction to his NBA career, but this is different. They found that out with Wiseman. They have to trade Wiggins. Yeah. I tell you what, if the Warriors could trade Wiggins and anybody but Kuminga to Cleveland for Jarrett Allen, that would be awesome. I mean, I don't have any proof or any intel, but I got to think Jarrett Allen is probably out of favor with Cleveland at this point because he's not playing. And, you know, when the coach says, well, I don't know, I think he's going to play, and he don't play, that's not a good sign. Now, can they do better than Wiggins and Moody? Maybe. I don't know. For Jarrett Allen, I don't know. They need wing players to complement Evan Mobley. Because Mobley's a center. Mobley is not a forward. He's a 7'1" center who has to get stronger, who has to become more and more comfortable playing against physical defenses. He's big enough to play inside. You know, and if you got like a Andrew Wiggins and he's playing well with that contract, and you got a Moody, and you got Mitchell, Garland, because the one thing about Wiggins, and this is a tip of the hat to him, even in his offensive inconsistency, his defense has been rock solid. We got to give it up to him. He had a very good defensive year last year. He probably graded out as one of the top 7, the top 10 defensive wings in the league. He was that good. He really was. Keisha, how do you feel about Brandon Ingram? Heard he's available. No way. I could say something about Brandon Ingram that I have observed just looking at him. It would be totally irresponsible and it would be funny. I can't do it. I won't do it because that's not who I am. I don't like when people do stuff like that. But I'll say this. He doesn't look like he's ready to play every game. Wink, wink. He played for Steve Kerr in the World Cup, and he was horrible. So I know Steve Kerr wants no part of Brandon Ingram. Because if you go out and you get Brandon Ingram, this dude is looking to get $150 to $200 million contract. They got to pay Kuminga. They're not paying him. So somebody's going to take Brandon Ingram. You know who might take Brandon Ingram? Philly. Now, I don't know what Philly has to give back to New Orleans. Maybe future draft picks. I don't know. Maybe Chicago would take a look at him. You know, they got the 11th pick. And, you know, maybe they can throw something else in there. But Brandon Ingram, as good as he is, he's a really talented player. It's a risk. It's a risk. If I'm the Warriors, I can't do that. Vicky loves herself some Moody. I like Moody too. Leave Moody alone. The reason why you got to mention Moody, Vicky, is because everybody wants him. Anytime you look at the Warriors, you start looking at auxiliary parts to complete. Oh, man. Say it. Come on. You say it. I'm not going to say it. Know why I'm not going to say it? Because I would be just like everybody else. And there's no proof, right? Imagine if people made observations about you or I that may be true, but there's no proof. I don't like that. I don't. I don't like that. But you know where I'm going. Oh, man. Hit me up at Big Frank Red on X. We're trying to run these numbers up, man. If you don't subscribe to the show, subscribe to it if you like what you hear. But yeah, the furthest I'll go with Brandon Ingram is just to say that he's not ready to play every game. You know why? I have no idea why not. I got some ideas, but he's not ready to play every game. You can't pay a guy $150 million, $30, $40 million a year, and you don't know if he's going to play. Plus, he's been injured a lot. My man, Mark Graves. Hi, Frank. Just got back from Cancun. How are you doing? Not as well as you're doing. You just got back from Cancun. I love Cancun. Beautiful blue water. I loved it. And when I went to Cancun, as opposed to staying, like, we stayed at a resort that was kind of like in a town, you know? So it wasn't all that expensive. And then we took a cab to the beach. I had so much fun. Good job, Mark. Love it. Love to hear your takes on what's going on in the NBA playoffs. I also wanted to touch on whether or not you guys think that I'm off base. I don't think so. I put out a couple of tweets yesterday about Luka. Luka, his antics just bother me. I can't stand how he chastises referees. I mean, come on, man. Nobody gets away with that. Nobody. Why do they allow him to get away with that stuff? I don't understand it. And I think the clock's ticking. Give Mark Cuban tremendous credit. Give Nico credit for putting players around him that are good players. But at some point, I think they're going to hold him accountable. And maybe that's a good thing. But, I mean, the way that he functions, it's almost like Luka thinks that I'm up here and my teammates are here. And maybe that's how it is in Europe. But that's not how it is here. It's not. He's lucky that he has a guy like Jay Kidd. You know? Because Jay Kidd's going to coach him. But I'm concerned that he's going to put a really good team. The Mavericks could make it to the Western Conference Finals. They could make it to the finals. And I know this dude is a phenomenal player. I'm not talking about his play, but his antics on the court based on how I came up is totally unacceptable. Totally unacceptable. Nobody in the Warriors, Draymond couldn't get away with that stuff. No way. If he changes his attitude, he'll win an MVP. And maybe they'll win a championship. But as long as he continues to show his displeasure on the court when it's not warranted, sometimes he's not going to get any respect from the referees. He won't even get the respect that he deserves from the players. He won't get it. Luka equals Pager, Stojakovic, but Pager didn't take 25 shots a game. He's better than Pager. I love Pager. Listen, Luka is a once in a generation player. I mean, nobody was doing step back threes. He can pass. You can't slow him down. Now, defensively, he's a complete sieve. Even when they say, oh yeah, Luka's really trying on defense, other players' eyes light up when Luka is guarding them. We know this. So he's not a defender. And you can say, well, he's limited physically. Yeah, but there's a lot of guys who are limited physically that work their asses off, that guard the player in front of him. And sometimes Luka tries, but he's not a good defender. What do you guys think of the new Kyrie? Kyrie looks like he's like applying for like a director's job at Google in post-game interviews now. Wearing a suit. Everybody knows how smart he is, but he's a long way from what took place a couple of years ago. Happy for the guy. Steph treats every teammate with grace. Absolutely. That's why he's Steph Curry. 1 in a million. 1 in a lifetime type of player, type of human being. Yeah. Makes you want to play with him. Unbelievable person. Jimmy says Celtics losing by 20 to the Cavs on Thursday continues to show they don't come to play every night. Yeah. No excuse for it. No excuse. And, Jimmy, somebody's going to have to pay a cost for that. They not only have to make it to the NBA Finals, they have to put on a good showing. And what is a good showing? I guess losing in 6 games, losing in 7 games. If they lost in 5 games, Joe Mazzulla would be gone. We know this. So some of the losses by the Boston Celtics are inexcusable, inexplicable. And, the guy who's writing the check, he's watching. You're paying Jaylen Brown $300 million. You got Jason Tatum, who's going to want his money. You just gave Holiday another 120, 135 million, whatever. They're primed to win a championship, and they got to get it done. Although I don't know if they can beat Denver. I don't know. That would be a terrific series. I don't think Dallas is quite ready, and I'm going to tell you why. I go back to the Warriors challenge. Dallas doesn't shoot free throws well enough. Their big guys don't shoot free throws well enough. I mean, granted, Lively stepped up and made some free throws when they were going hack a Lively, but their front court players do not shoot free throws well enough. That concerns me. Gabbert and Lively, you got to be over 70% as far as I'm concerned. But they got 2 primetime scorers in Luka and Kyrie. They got some pretty good role players. Hardaway Jr. appears to be playing fairly well. So it's going to be interesting. The only team in the Western Conference now that I look at and I say I just can't see them winning is OKC. Now watch OKC prove me wrong, but I don't think this is their year. I think they need to adjust their lineup a little bit. The kid from Australia, was it Gabby? What's his name? I can't think of his name right now. He's barely playing. So he's probably going to get traded if they can trade him. Thank you, Jimmy. Josh Giddey is his name. He appears to be losing his confidence also. He's a little scary though. I'm gonna tell you why. If you put Josh Giddey on a team and you made him the full-time point guard, he might be lights out. We don't know. We know he's not a good shooter. His form is not good, but his basketball IQ and his instincts, passing ability, he can drive, he can finish. He could have an opportunity to be a really, really good player. But for this particular team, the way that they're constituted, I think he probably needs to go. The Warriors probably like him. But because SGA's usage rate is so high, he's the only one that really has the ball in his hands. And they got to change that. I actually think Clay would be good for OKC. No, he's not Lou Dort defensively, but Clay's still solid. Clay's not going anywhere. But OKC is one of the teams that I think he could help. Vicky says, I hope whoever the Warriors draft hit their free throws. How about that? It's not that hard, right? I totally agree with you, Vicky. Just playing the game and coaching the game, with all of these great teams, the outcomes are in the balance the last 4 or 5 minutes of the game. You got to make your free throws. That's another reason why Jokic is so good. Excellent free throw shooter. Shoots a high percentage. He just breaks the back of opposing teams. Key says Steve Kerr told Ant-Man before FIFA games he was going to bring him off the bench, comparing it to Wade coming off the bench because Kobe and Ant-Man replied, who? Kobe on this team? Great comeback. No, that was funny. Yo, man, I love Ant-Man. Everybody loves him. And he proved to Steve Kerr that coaches are not always right. That's one of the things that I learned when I was a really young person. I respect coaches, but they're not always right. Sometimes they get it wrong. These legendary stories of I'm trying to think of the coach at Green Bay. Vince Lombardi, Bill Parcells, Don Shula, Red Holzman, Phil Jackson, Pat. Yeah, listen, coaches get it wrong sometimes. Ant-Man coming off the bench was not a good idea. On the Olympic team, he's not coming off the bench. You know who's coming off the bench? Devin Booker is coming off the bench. He's starting with Stephen Curry. Those are your two starting guards. Your two starting forwards, LeBron James and Kevin Durant. Your center, probably Abadiah from Miami. That's the team right there. I've just done all the work. Jimmy says, what areas do you see the NBA and game of basketball evolving in the next 5 to 10 years? Wow. I think that the NBA likes the injection of more physicality. So I think we're going to go back to the new. What we've seen over the past 2 or 3 months and like the last 6 months of the regular season, I think we're going to see that over the next 2 to 3 years until dominant players and dominant teams start to emerge. Once those stars emerge, then I think the league will start to protect them. But right now, it's kind of a bloodbath. And I think that the NBA was concerned about how the fans would embrace a more physical brand of basketball. And thus far, the fans have been receptive to it. It makes for a harder game for players to play. And I think the NBA likes that, because, players have to distinguish themselves among their peers. And with LeBron leaving and Stephen leaving, some of the other older players, it's a bloodbath. So I think more physicality, and Um, More pace. I think you're going to see more and more teams playing with pace. The teams that play half court will be dinosaurs. So you're talking about like Indy 500 in the NBA the next 5 years. Teams are going to get the ball up and down. I think fans like to see that style of play. You're going to have screaming entities come into the community, the broadcast community. So they want to figure out how can we get young people engaged. They love speed. They love dunks. They love three-point shots. So, yeah, more physicality, more speed. That's what I see. Probably less structured basketball, unfortunately. Because it's hard to teach. It's hard to teach teams like the Warriors how to play. If you want to inject the Warriors style of basketball, it's going to take some time. So I think you're going to see just more teams like the Indiana Pacers, more teams like the Orlando Magic. That's what you're going to see. You're going to see teams going up and down. My guy, Mark Graves, Bam Adebayo. There you go. Start lineup of our Olympic team is Bam Adebayo, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Stephen Curry, and Ant-Man. That's starting five. Mark says physicality games means more fouls. Don't want a free throw parade. Mark, that's logical, but it's not a foul. The referees don't call it. And they're not calling fouls. They're not calling fouls. Even tonight, I mean, you saw that Denver-Minnesota game. They weren't calling fouls. So, like I said before, they will start calling fouls when players distinguish themselves as stars. If you have not ascended to that level of respect, you won't get a call. You won't. You know, Jokic will get some calls, probably Ant-Man, but there's not a lot of players who's going to have like that Jordan impact or that Kobe impact. It's not going to happen. And the elders of the NBA, the commissioners, the owners who are jockeying to get their franchises above some of their peers, they all want to make sure that their players get the respect that they think that they deserve. So how do you do that? You let the players fight it out. And the physicality point that I'm making, I think, is one way that will happen. I don't want to see players get hurt. That's a great point, Vicky. And I think that it's going to be a balancing act. It really is. We're going back to the Pistons' old-fashioned basketball. No, we're not going back there. No. And the reason why we're not going back there is the advent of the three-point shot. So there's going to be a ton of three-point shots. No one's going to get hurt driving to the basket because you got, flagrant twos and things of that nature. But on the perimeter and going to the basket, you're going to have some players hanging on each other. It's not going to be an easy gateway to the rim. That's not going to happen. Key says, what if we draft LaMelo or Ant-Man? Okay, what if we had drafted LaMelo or Ant-Man? We still elite. They blew it. And why can't Ant-Man diet and LaMelo? Okay. I think if I kind of diagnose what you're saying is you're saying that you're looking in retrospect about what we could have done. Yeah. I always go back to 2022. The Warriors won a championship. That trumps everything as far as I'm concerned. They won a championship. So whatever plan they put together, I'm riding with it because we didn't see that fourth championship happening. It happened. They stole one, in my opinion, but they won a championship. So Warriors being more competitive versus not having a fourth championship, I'll take the championship. Because I think that they have shown an ability to build a team and an organization. I looked at Kuminga's numbers today. Dude's in his third year. In Kuminga's third year, he shot over 50% from the field, over 70% from the free throw line, and he averaged 16 and a half points a game. That's pretty damn good. Give him a lot of credit in spite of his immaturity at times, and give the Warriors credit. It was not a straight line, but he's developed. He's a guy who people want. So, I mean, there's no reason why, particularly if you trade Wiggins, Kuminga can't average 18 to 22 points a game next year. I think he would. Now, he has to play at least 75 games. He can't get hurt and miss 8, 9. No, dude. We need you on the court. So I'm excited about Kuminga. Every summer that he does his individual workouts, he comes back significantly better. So if you're a Warrior fan, you got to feel pretty good about Kuminga if he stays. Now, if there's a blockbuster trade that the Warriors are thinking about making, if it's a blockbuster, you would think that he would be involved in that. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's Cat Towns. It could be Cat. If you were the Warriors, would you consider trading Kuminga for Cat? You got to think about it. If you're the Warriors, you have a 7-foot guy who can make threes, play at the high post. You got Draymond. Then you would obviously bring Wiggins back, Clay and Steph. That's a pretty good foundation to start with. And if you're Minnesota, you got Gobert, you got Kuminga, you got Ant-Man, and you still got your defensive stopper. They would have to figure that out. But you would have to think about it. Great point, Mark. Yeah, the Warriors hit the number 2 pick. Vicky says, I'm glad. Some of those Piston games were brutal. Yeah, nobody wants to see that again. 80 to 84. Wow, that was a great game. No, it wasn't. I wanted to share a moment with you all. Last night, about 2 a.m, I was up. I don't sleep a lot. I was on the internet looking at videos on high-speed rail. I'm interested in that stuff. And I don't use like Instagram or whatever. I have an account, but I don't really use it. But something came over, like, I guess my timeline, what they call it. You guys know I'm a music head, right? And I'm sure some of you listening will know, but most of you probably won't know. There's a song by Crosby, Stills, and Nash called Woodstock. Big time record, right? Record was a hit record, I'm sure, before I even really understood what music was. But I love 70s rock and roll. I love that, right? I did not know that Joni Mitchell wrote that song. Did you guys know that? You might not even know the Crosby, Stills, and Nash version, but Joni Mitchell wrote Woodstock. I did not know that. And I listened to her version last night, her playing the piano. And it's a really, really good story. I guess she had like a show to do and she couldn't get out of a TV interview or whatever. So she never went to Woodstock. And she goes, I didn't go, but I was willing to write a song for my friends to perform. And I don't know how truthful that is or whatever the case, but it became a big hit for Crosby, Stills, and Nash. I love the song Woodstock. The harmonies are incredible in that song. Joni Mitchell wrote that song. Another reason why Joni Mitchell is incredible. You know, one of the great artists of her era and probably of all time. And I was giddy because I love the song. And so much respect to Joni Mitchell. Salute, man. She's awesome. Mark Graves says, yeah, it's a great song. It is a great song. Key says, Towns is so talented, but I don't want to post up. But he doesn't want to post up or play D. People come to the Warriors and they change a little bit, though. You know, and you get around Draymond Green and you're winning. You're in the Bay. You're playing for one of the great organizations in all the sports. You know, people care about you. I think the Warriors would be a great organization for Cat Towns. I think he probably needs to get the hell out of Minnesota. I'm sure they probably are a little tired of his act because nobody that talented should play so poorly. So should be interesting. Mark Graves says also love the song Sweet, Judy Blue Eyes. I got to check that out. I don't know about it. Thank you. Vicky says love the song. Okay. So Vicky loves it also. Yeah, that was my wow moment. That was why I love music so much. I love music. The WNBA starts on Tuesday. Tomorrow is final cut day. And I think one of my favorite players, Mika Mule, the former UConn Husky, is on the Seattle Storm. I think she's going to make the team now. I don't know how or whatever, but I love watching her play. I'm a big fan of hers. I'm so excited about the WNBA, and the networks are as well, because you see some of the things that they put on network, not network, but ESPN now, when they start to run low of content. They're going to be begging for the WNBA. It's going to be not the World Series, but it's going to be must-see TV. It really is. I'm just so happy for these women. I really am. Chartered flights now, skill in mass abundance. I love it. There's so many players that I like too. There's 12 teams in the league. I'm interested in seeing Seattle. One of my favorite players also is the young lady Sally Desali, played at Oregon with Sabrina Ionescu. There's a lot of good players in this league, and I'm happy that they're getting their due. DJ says, Frank, Knicks look gassed. Thibodeau's habit of playing up a hard minutes might start affecting them. Yeah, you know, which is why, I didn't really spend a lot of time on the game because they were gassed. They should be gassed. And Tom knows that. I mean, everything to me hinges on Anunoby. If OG can come back and play on Tuesday with that Garden crowd, because that Garden crowd is going to be crazy. Can you imagine everybody and their mama is going to be in the Garden on Tuesday night, except Charles Oakley, unfortunately. Because Game 5 is a pivotal game. Let's be honest. You got to win Game 5. Even if I think the Knicks will win Game 6 in Indianapolis, but you got to win Game 5. I think if Indiana wins Game 5, then they're probably going to win the series. So, man, I am so excited about that matchup. I think at this point, tomorrow is a big time rest day. You know, sleep in your own bed, massages, and all that good stuff. And they need OG. They have to have Anunoby. If he doesn't play, I don't know how they can win. I don't. At the start of the series, I thought it would go at least 6 games. So we're right where we're supposed to be. The Knicks were not going to sweep them, and they were not going to sweep the Knicks. So this is vintage New York Knicks, Indiana Pacers, NBA playoff basketball. And I still like my Knicks. I like my chances. Thank you, DJ. Vicky says 60s, 70s, and 80s, great songs. Yeah, melody was big. Melody was big during that era. Vicky, I gained so much inspiration from writing songs from that era. I really do. So I'm a big fan. And I love the fact that even now at this stage of my life, I can still discover music that I don't know about. Isn't that fun? You know, that is awesome. SG, how you doing, brother? Thank you for checking in. I appreciate you. Thank you. How am I doing? I'm doing a lot better now after doing this particular show because Mother's Day is tough for me. It's my favorite holiday, but I get emotional about it, man. I've had a tough life. It's probably not as tough as some other folks. People could have challenges, but life has just really been a journey, and it's still a journey. And it started with how I and other people came into the world. You know, I'm the product of a teenage mother. My mom had 2 kids at 16, had me at 16, and had my sister at 15. And it's been tough. And, you know, so I've done extremely well for myself because of the support I've had from a lot of other people. You know, gone to college, multiple degrees and all that crap. But most of the time when you have challenges in your family, everybody doesn't ascend to the same level. And that's been our reality. You know, I've been the one person who's kind of stuck out and been able to accomplish some things, and everybody else has kind of, you know, tried to do the best that they could do, but it's been hard, and it starts at the beginning. And when I just think of the strife that my mother and other mothers had to endure by themselves oftentimes, yeah, man, it takes me back to when I was a kid. It really does. Key says, Frank, was Jason Kidd the best high school player coming out of the Bay Area in your lifetime? And was anybody even close? Since Jason Kidd was in high school, yeah, I've never seen a player who's better than him. But I can't disrespect Bill Russell. I'm not going to put Jason Kidd above Bill Russell. You know, I'm going to say Jason Kidd is, you know, the greatest guard that I've seen in the Bay Area. I'm sure, you know, Gary Payton and his camp and his friends probably have something to say about that. And I love Gary Payton. And Gary Payton is equally a Hall of Famer. It's amazing that those two guys are really good friends and from the same area, and both Hall of Famers and like brothers. But yeah, Jason Kidd was unbelievable. I was looking at Jay Kidd today on was it yesterday on television? When did they play? Here's the thing about Jason Kidd. A really good friend of mine used to umpire Jason Kidd's baseball games. Jason Kidd could have been a major league outfielder, center field, left field, right field. He was that good. He could have played baseball at Cal. 6'4", 210 pounds with that speed. Jason Kidd also played golf. I mean, you're talking about one of the greatest athletes in the history of sports. And I mean, I remember Don Nelson made a statement. And this is an ungodly statement. Don Nelson said that if Jason Kidd had applied for the NBA draft out of high school, he would have drafted him in the first round. That was unheard of at the time. A guard been drafted in the first round? But that's how good he was. This dude, the strongest hands I've ever seen. And I played against him in the Pro-Am. And, yes, he's the best high school player that I've seen in the Bay Area. But I cannot put him above Bill Russell. I think Bill Russell has to be looked upon as the greatest basketball player ever to come out of the Bay, right? And there have been so many good ones. But I got to put Mr. Russell at the top. R.I.P. SG says, Frank, your New York Knicks are a very resilient basketball team, and they will bounce back from the loss against Indiana. I agree. Hey, Frank, I love you as a person who can be very motivational and help people through highs and lows. I appreciate you. I think that is a gift. I think it is a gift that I have to inspire others to honestly share my life. I've lived an incredible life. I really have. And my life has been so incredible, I'm not really worried about dying. You know, some people, I remember like when I was like a young kid, my older sister since passed, but my older sister was my hero. You know, we didn't really get along as we got older, but she was my protector, not my hero. She was my protector. And we used to sleep in the same room. And I remember when I was like 6 years old, and I was just like, I was afraid. And I was like, her name was Dorothy. We called her Dot. I said, Dot, why we have to die? And she goes, you don't have to worry about that. I go, why not? She said, I'm going to protect you. She goes, nothing's going to ever happen to you. I'm going to protect you. I always remembered that. And I closed my eyes and I went to sleep. And from that day on, I was never afraid because I knew that my sister was going to protect me, my big sister. And as time has evolved, I've gained more and more courage, and I have become a protector, you know? And the work is in the now. Why would you be afraid of dying if you've done so much good work here? If you really impacted the lives of people in a special way, why would you be afraid? I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid because of the opportunities that I have to impact the lives of others now. And even like doing the show, this is incredible. This is incredible. It's 11 o'clock at night and people are listening and watching and sharing. Awesome. Thank you. DJ says, Frank, you're a real one, sir. Keep up the great content. Well, thank you. Thank you. Mark Graves says Damian Lillard's pretty good. Yeah, Damian's great. Damian's not on Jason Kidd or Gary Payton's level. And yet he's a Hall of Famer. He's a top 75 player. Jason Kidd and Gary Payton are what, top 75, maybe top 50, you know. Just different players. Because those are, I mean, when you think of two of the greatest defensive players in the history of the NBA, Jason Kidd and Gary Payton are right there. Good. We back. You want to scare the daylights out of me? Put me in a situation where I got to use technology. My mic is fixed now. You can hear me, right? Okay, you're back. All right, good. Thank you. Yeah. Wow, that was scary. Let me clean some of this up. Okay, Frank, you can't hear you. Fix your mic. Oh, well, I'm good. You're back. Yes, you can hear me. Okay, good. Yeah. Probably a pretty good time to say goodnight. It's 11 o'clock. Like I told you before, I mean, I could have done 3 hours tonight. We did 90 minutes. It seems like 10 minutes. I want to thank everybody for checking in and being a part of the show. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Hit the like button. You guys doing a good job hitting the like button. Continue to do that. I think it does help. Kind of surprised at the subscriber numbers are not really going up. I'm not really tripping too much, but we're trying to promote the show. Thank you for checking it out. If you think someone else might like it, or want them to give a listen to it, then let them know about it. Your music will live on. Yeah, it will. Top 5 WNBA players. It's a year-to-year proposition. Vicky says your music will live forever. Yes, isn't that incredible? Yeah. That's why I do it. Vicky, my goal is to have like I said 10 before, but I'm gonna do 20 songs. Have like a 20 song catalog out there, and just let it be there for people to check out, listen to. It'll be a timestamp, and it will be there forever. So It's a beautiful thing. All right. Success in getting paid is a manifestation of the whole process. If you as an individual don't do things, help other people make their lives better. As far as I'm concerned, you haven't done nothing. I want to thank everybody once again for joining me in tonight's program. Excellent basketball. I'm looking forward to tomorrow's matchups between OKC and the Dallas Mavericks. And I guess Cleveland takes on the Boston Celtics. Hit me up on X. Follow the show. Have a great week. And I'll probably talk to you in a couple of days, if not tomorrow, probably after the Knicks game on Tuesday. All right, everybody have a great week. Thank you and good night. Peace.